The pothole, as I said at the end of the last review, besides the parking garage that a lot of people say was one of the toughest episodes of the film, gotta say the pothole may have surpassed that in my opinion. There was a lot of more advanced shots, a lot more time-consuming setups, and even some dangerous tricks done as well in this episode. But it was really good. Jerry has definitely said on The Tonight Show in 1992 that the pothole may be one of the best episodes of the series. And also Andy Ackerman earned an Emmy Award for Outstanding Direction for this episode for sure. But I agree, it was a very done episode, but definitely a challenging one for sure. I guess apparently the directors did have, the crew did have a shirt that said, "I survived the pothole" episode. So let's talk about the pothole episode. So it starts off, Jerry's now dating this woman named Jenna. Won't deny, definitely one of the more better looking women that Jerry's dated. And I guess Jerry was brushing his teeth at her sink, and he accidentally knocks her toothbrush into the toilet. And there is actually a point of view shot from inside the toilet with the water. You see Jerry looking down to the toilet and reaching into the toilet trying to pull it back out. That was actually, it took an hour to set up and I think 3 hours to shoot it, from what I heard. They actually wanted to get like a point of view shot. So of course, in order to get a point of view shot inside the toilet with water above the shot, they took a piece of plexiglass, they basically carved the bottom of the toilet and put a plexiglass for them to set up the camera to see Jerry, reach into the toilet to pull out the toothbrush, which is a very advanced shot. Of course, Jerry pulls out the toothbrush, but then as he pulls it out and he washes his hands, he looks up and there's Jenna brushing her teeth with the toothbrush that just fell into the toilet. But he never told Jenna. And Jenna's like Jerry, very picky about germs and whatnot. Although Jerry, of course, may be worse. So Jerry does not know what to do. He hasn't told her yet, and he's got to try to find some sort of way around it. George, meanwhile, gets a set of keys. He has his keys, and on it is now a squeeze head of Phil Rizzuto, former Yankee shortstop, saying, "Holy cow!" in honor of him being inducted into the Hall of Fame. And of course, everything that they say, like even when Kramer came in and was talking about how he was dragging a sewing machine underneath his car for like five exits on one of the expressways. He was going to say something about it, but of course, again, George went, "Holy cow!" But of course, then Kramer doesn't realize Phil Rizzuto goes, "Oh look, a talking Nixon." So there's that. Elaine, meanwhile, is having her own issues. She is trying to order this flounder from China Panda. But when she went to order and gave her address, she's across the street from where they have the boundary at, where they deliver. So they don't deliver to her apartment, and they won't let her walk across the street to meet the guy that she has to get the flounder from. So she came up with this idea where originally she placed the order, she waited outside the apartment building across the street from her, but when she went to pay for it, the delivery boy was suspicious, like, "Do you actually live here or whatnot?" And when she couldn't get back in, realized she was busted, handed the money, the flounder back, and he handed the money back to her, and she flipped out about it. So now she needs a plan B to get that flounder. George then runs into some problems, though, with his Phil Rizzuto keys. His keys were missing as he was on his way to work, so instead he came to Jerry looking for help. He retraced his steps to realize he dropped them when jumping over a pothole. They go back to where that pothole was on 86th Street, right by Elaine's apartment, and also Jenna's too, only to realize that the pothole had been paved and his keys were hidden underneath there. But of course, as each car drove over top of that spot, you hear that Phil Rizzuto going, "Holy cow!" So George now needs a way to dig up the pothole to get his keys. Meanwhile, of course, Jerry still has not told Jenna about the whole the toothbrush in the toilet incident. So he first buys Jenna this battery-operated toothbrush that she didn't really like. And she also had to rinse her mouth with, the stuff that Jerry suggested. It tastes like bleach. But of course, as she's doing that, Jerry threw away her old toothbrush. But then, even though her mouth was clean, she then leans in to kiss Jerry. But of course, Jerry, being the germaphobe, can't stop thinking about that toothbrush fault, how Jenna, brushed her teeth with that toilet water toothbrush. So he makes up an excuse saying that he has a cold and he can't kiss. And then later, Jerry sees her again, and he finally admits to her what happened. And while he's out in the hallway talking to Kramer, she shuts the door and locks it, and then opens it a few minutes later. It says that now something of yours has been in the toilet. And she won't tell Jerry what it is. So Jerry, of course, is freaking out trying to figure out what it is. He's literally thrown away basically everything in his house because he doesn't know what the heck it was that Jenna threw in the toilet. And once again, Jerry's a germaphobe. So then, meanwhile, Kramer went and complained about that litter on the highway. It leads to him getting a mile in the Adopt a Highway program, mile 114. On the same expressway, he found that sewing machine. So Kramer literally just went to town, cleaning it up. He cleaned up all the junk. He, was trying to fix the signs. One of them had 65 miles an hour spray painted to be 165 miles an hour. And he's going to do all those other things. There was even, of course, a scene where they had to have extras drive their cars on the road set, where Kramer basically had to, battle traffic to pick up one little piece of trash that was still in the middle of the highway, which of course was dangerous. He could have got hit by a car, but he pulled it off great and, acted it out very well, of course. And then he has this idea that he wants to widen the lanes. So what he did was he drove his car and he opened the door and he painted black paint over top of the white lines to make like a 4-lane highway, a 2-lane wide lane highway. And he also hooked George up with these guys to help him get a jackhammer to help him get the keys back. Which he works out a deal, but basically the best he could do is pay $50 for a jackhammer, and he does the jackhammering. Elaine, of course, is still struggling to get her flounder. So what she does is she somehow gets into the apartment complex across the street from her where they do deliver. She goes to apartment 1A, and the guy, basically was oblivious, didn't want to help Elaine. But then Elaine turns around and realizes that there's a janitor's closet. And then she thought, I could turn this into an apartment, and I can order my flounder. So she orders the flounder at Jerry's apartment, and then, of course, says gives the address, and she says apartment 1Q. And then Jerry's confused by 1Q. And she says, that's the janitor's closet. And explains her dilemma. But Jerry's like, well, why don't you just eat at the restaurant? Because I don't want to eat there alone like a loser, even though she could just pick it up and get it to go. But, So she literally goes to the janitor's closet. How she gets back in, I have no clue. And how the delivery boy even got in without having to get buzzed in, I don't know that either. But Elaine acted like she just got out of the shower, which is why it took her a while for her to get there. But of course, even the delivery boy was still kind of curious because she seemed familiar and trying to see what the actual apartment looked like. So that's where Elaine gets her flounder. Until she started getting in trouble with, I think, the landlord, because she is, or the actual head janitor or whatnot, and because she actually thinks that Elaine for real is a janitor. So Elaine's been having to do some work, or else she was going to get kicked out of the apartment building. Meanwhile, of course, Jerry came over, still freaking out, trying to figure out what's going on, what Jenna actually did. So Jerry came over to visit Elaine and get the flounder at her janitor's closet apartment. George then came up and started getting cramped. He wanted to hang out until Kramer's boys brought the jackhammer. And then Kramer just came up because he needs some paint thinners. He was hearing people on the radio complaining about, the widened lanes, and he needs paint thinner to remove the black paint. He doesn't want to lose his baby, as he's calling his mile on the highway. So, So then, and also forgot to mention too, Kramer mentioned to Elaine that Newman apparently delivers fish to China Panda as well on the weekends. Why is that important? You'll see why in a second. But Kramer needs some paint thinner, but Elaine doesn't have any. But of course, then the janitor knocks on the door again, and Elaine, fighting her way through, and it's all cramped. She's basically told she has to take, this garbage out, and I could drive it. I forgot where she had to drive it to, or else she was out of here. So then, of course, Jerry finally invites Jenna over. They talk things out. She finally admits that the place she had hid the items she had thrown to the toilet was Jerry's toilet brush, but Jerry realizes that he could be replaced. So then they decided to go get dinner, but he said they can't stay at Jerry's because he threw all of his dishes out. Basically, he threw everything out in this house. He had basically nothing left. Which they go there. Then, of course, Elaine was packing up her car, getting ready to drive the stuff to the dump where she had to go, while George was using the jackhammer on the pothole. And Kramer was out getting his 40 gallons of paint thinner. Well, things kind of erupted because George, while using the jackhammer, accidentally struck a water pipe. And you hear a big clang. Jerry, meanwhile, of course, is nearby at Jenna's apartment, saying how he's not going to let something silly like that get in the way of what could be a very long-lasting relationship. How he's a new man, this and that. And then Jenna starts hearing some noise, that the toilet's rumbling. And, of course, outside, a bunch of water starts jetting up. And sure enough, we see the Phil Rizzuto keys shoot up, go, holy cow, and just fly up and away. Now, of course, in editing, the special effects was the fact that they had dropped the Phil Rizzuto keys in front of a green screen. But, of course, me being an editor, knowing this, they then, of course, reversed the shot in front of the green screen. And just made it look like it was just coming in, and then how it shot up, which was shot perfectly. And, of course, George was standing there with this look on his face like, well, I did that. Oh, well, I ruined it, whatever. But it didn't go too well for Jerry, as Jenna goes to the bathroom to see the toilet shaking, then the toilet just shoots out water from the water line and gets all over Jenna, wet as hell, obviously, with toilet water. And Jerry just goes, holy cow. Nice knowing you. Shuts the door and he leaves. So that's the end of that relationship right there, although she does return in a later episode. I can't remember if it was on the last episode of Disc 8, if not of Season 8. The last disc of Season 8. If not, it's definitely, of course, Season 9. But I know she comes back in one more episode, because she does date a nemesis of Jerry in a certain episode. Which we'll talk about that, of course, when we get to it. George got his keys back, but Jerry lost his girlfriend. Elaine, meanwhile, is... first off, Kramer is out... you get the paint thinner, was obviously not as busy to try to, scrape up that black paint to get the lines back. But Elaine was driving, and she was impressed by the wide lanes. And she starts, just ooh, swerving just for the fun of it. But something falls out of her trunk. It's a sewing machine. Just like Kramer had dealt with earlier in the episode. Now, Kramer, being as clumsy as he is, tries to lift the paint thinner out of the car, but drops it, and it opens up, and it just gets all over the street. Meanwhile, though, Newman's driving down the same street in his mail truck, delivering his fresh fish to China Panda. Unfortunately, though, for Newman, he hits the... he doesn't realize it, but he hits the sewing machine, which starts dragging underneath his truck, giving up sparks. Doesn't think much of it, keeps driving. But then Kramer then sees that the paint thinner is flammable. Newman's coming towards him. Of course, Kramer doesn't realize it's Newman. And then Newman's singing, "You once, twice, 3 times, lady." And then he, unfortunately, with the sparks from the sewing machine underneath his truck and the paint thinner, Mail truck just blows up in smokes and catches on fire. And then, of course, he's all burned up, and then he's walking past Kramer on the street. Kramer is completely oblivious to, the fact that Newman was the fireball. He's like, oh, hey, buddy, how you doing? And Newman's like, ooh, 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 ooh. See that fireball? And Newman was so distracted. All of a sudden, we hear the police lights, and then Kramer's like, ah, skedaddle, because I'm in trouble. He's trying to offer Newman a lift, but Newman will listen. He's like, Newman, I'll meet you at the coffee shop. And he drives away, just completely oblivious to the fact that Newman was the guy who was in that fireball truck that caught on fire. And Newman just walks off into the darkness, all burned up. No fish, no mail truck. It's another mail truck that, unfortunately, they lost after the one that they got beat up in the bottle deposit episode. That's the Pothole, though. Again, crazy episode between the Phil Rizzuto keys being shot out of the ground to the toilet, the toothbrush and the toilet shot, and of course, Jerry's germaphobe. To the dangerous, scene with Kramer running out in the middle of traffic trying to grab one more piece of litter. That was a crazy episode. Like I definitely agree. One of the best episodes in the series, but definitely one of the hardest ones, probably the shoot that they did. A lot of editing, a lot of special effects, a lot of crazy stunts and whatnot, but a great episode, and it worked out great. Now, any trivia here we got here? Well, I mentioned that the thing about this gave Andy Ackerman an Emmy Award for outstanding direction, and of course, Jerry mentioned how this may be one of the best episodes for sure. Kristen Davis, who played Jenna in this episode, she apparently originally auditioned for the part of Sister Roberta back in the Conversion episode, but did not get the part. Also, we have Jeff Kurt Miller, who plays an uncredited role as the man in the lift in this episode. He also had roles in The Hot Tub as the event guard, and he's also in the next episode, The English Patient, as George's rival, Neil. Never see his face, but who is this Neil guy? We're going to find out what's the next episode. And then Newman's line of "Oh, the humanity" in the burning mail truck was a reference to Herbert Morrison's famous news broadcast from Hindenburg, Fiery Landing. That's pretty much it there. Like I said, fun episode. Definitely one of the hardest ones, the most challenging ones they filmed, but they pulled it off pretty good. But that's going to do it. We have one more episode on Disc 3, which it's late at night now, and I'm probably not going to be uploading these videos till tomorrow. But I'll do the final episode on Disc 3 of Season 8, The English Patient. I'll do that one tomorrow because it is pretty late. I got to get for bed tomorrow. And all the other videos I'm doing tonight, I will upload tomorrow. So guys, that is my thoughts on the Pothole episode. What are your guys' thoughts on the Pothole episode? Do you agree this was one of the more challenging episodes for them to shoot? Do you think, the little effects of doing a POV toilet shot, and of course the Phil Rizzuto key shooting out, Kramer's, craziness, and Jerry being a germaphobe, and of course the mail truck catching on fire. What are your thoughts on all these extreme moments in this episode? Do you also think this is also one of the best episodes? Make sure to leave your thoughts down in the comment section below, and be sure as always to slap a like on the video, subscribe for more content on my channel, follow me on Twitter as well at DemandAirboy93. I'll see you guys in the next video, which is for The English Patient. Maybe a good episode, but is The English Patient a good movie according to Elaine Bennis? We'll find out next. So once again, guys, I'll catch you all later. Have a great rest of your night, and peace out, everybody.